Every D&D campaign has royalty, right? A king or a queen, maybe both, ruling over a land you adventure within. Sometimes these rulers are only mentioned in passing and never actually seen. Sometimes they play a massive role in your campaign story, and sometimes they're never brought up at all. Most kings in D&D end up as basic quest givers, while others are instantly just the evil villain of your campaign. There are a lot of options when it comes to writing royalty in Dungeons & Dragons campaigns, but how do we narrow it all down? And how can our rulers actually make an impact on our world, so it feels more like their presence matters, whether they ever meet the party or not? That's what we're talking about on today's episode of World Building with a Human Man. That's me, a regular human man, who's definitely not a mind flayer in disguise with a fake mustache. Uh, in this video, I'm going to go over everything you need to write in-depth rulers for your campaigns, as well as mentioning smaller rulers spread out across the land. And at the end of the video, I'll be building my own ruler from scratch, using the methods we discussed along the way. So, with that being said, let's talk about royalty. So, what do kings and queens actually do in Dungeons & Dragons? I mean, besides standing on something really tall and waving to people down below, I guess. Well, even when we never see them, they're responsible for the laws of your world. Most guards in major cities work for the king. So if your world has strict laws, don't blame the guards who catch you breaking them. Blame the ones wearing the crowns. Now, some laws are pretty basic, like don't steal, don't attack the innocent, don't vandalize. Simple stuff like that that really shouldn't be questioned. If you do question that, okay. But maybe your world has more strict laws. Like, what if magic was actually banned in your world? Or at least a specific type of magic? What if necrotic magic was outlawed entirely? Any spell with necrotic energy gets casted, and suddenly guards are chasing you through the streets yelling things like,
"Stop right there, criminal scum! Nobody breaks the law on my watch! I'm confiscating your stolen goods. Now pay your fine, or it's off to jail. Then pay with your blood!"
And that ban doesn't have to be random. Maybe it's tied to something that happened to the royal family in the past. Perhaps the rulers have been tricked before by illusion magic, and now illusion magic just doesn't exist in your world anymore. If you were to cast illusion magic, that's a crime punishable by jail time, death, or a fine. Your royal family can absolutely just be one dude in a crown. In fact, that's how I usually see it handled in campaigns. But realistically, that king might have a queen, and they might come from a much larger family tree. Designing a royal family tree gives your world a lot more political history. I wouldn't go too deep with it, but it is nice for those more lore-hungry players to know who ruled before the current monarch. Was the ruler elected? Were they chosen by some ancient tradition? For the sake of fantasy, I'm going to stick with the royal family just passing on their heritage to their children. I personally show who these kings and queens' parents were and why they're dead. Yeah, I almost always remove royal parents from the picture. It just avoids the whole, well, if the king's dad is alive, wouldn't that make the king a prince and the king's dad is the actual king? It just kind of removes that conversation entirely, and it just makes things easier to understand going forward. Here's the king, there is no grandfather to the king, he's gone, but his history is still there. I do like going further back and asking, like, who was the first ruler of this land? Who was the first queen? Who was the first king? Was this land discovered? Was it conquered? United under one banner? Maybe there's a massive statue of the first ruler in the capital city, or just outside the royal castle. Little details like that add weight to the crown. If needed, I'll also give the king and queen children, heirs to the throne, princes and princesses who might be incredibly kind, or absolutely insufferable and spoiled. Either way, it gives the kingdom a future. You don't have to do this, but it does quite literally add layers to your world's politics. You can make it so that there's one immortal queen and nobody else if you like, or you could build it out like Game of Thrones and have a family tree filled with siblings, exiles, bastards, and forgotten branches. All that being said, for the king I'm designing here in this video, I'm going to do something a little different where he has no family at all, including no queen, no children, he's just a lonely king. And that absence is part of the story. There is no heir, there's no clear replacement when he's gone, and that uncertainty creates political tension, fear, maybe some excitement when the people talk about the kingdom's future. We'll get into my mystery king a bit more as the video goes on. So, what is the purpose of royalty in the story given? Royalty exists in a story to act as a symbol. A king or queen represents the health of the kingdom itself. When the ruler is strong, fair, and respected, the lands tend to feel stable. When they're corrupt, weak, or afraid, that rot can spread outwards into the streets, the guards, and the people. Players don't need to constantly interact with the royalty to feel their presence. Closed city gates, higher prices, missing food shipments, or soldiers posted on every corner all quietly tell the story of who's sitting on the throne. For a media example, look at the Kingdom of Corona in Tangled. It's full of lights, symbols of the sun, and people are always celebrating. Even in sadder times, their rulers are a positive king and queen despite having a lost daughter. The kingdom reflects this by being incredibly positive while also showing sadness when needed to reflect their royal rulers. Royal rulers. That's a fun thing to say. Comment below if you just said that out loud. Now, a very different example, look at King Joffrey in Game of Thrones when he ruled. I feel like I don't have to go too in-depth for this here, but for those who haven't seen Game of Thrones, when this guy was king, everything sucked. Everything sucked for the people of the Seven Kingdoms, everything sucked for him in general. His envy, anger, greed, and lust for violence were reflected.
Tell me, which do you favor? Your fingers or your tongue? Fingers or your tongue? If you got to keep one, which would it be?
Royalty also exists to create limits for the party. A ruler is powerful enough to matter, but restricted enough that they can't solve every problem themselves. If the king could personally handle the cult, the invasion, the monsters in the woods, or whatever your story's about, there would be no need for adventurers. There would be no need for your Dungeons & Dragons party. Instead, royalty becomes a source of pressure, issuing impossible demands, setting deadlines, or forcing the party into political choices where there is no clean answer. A good ruler doesn't remove agency from the players, they sharpen it by making every decision feel like they could change the fate of the entire kingdom. They also give high rewards for the more secret and dangerous quest lines that they have knowledge of. So ask your kings and queens for quests if you want like some cool stuff. Now let's talk about the very popular trope in Dungeons & Dragons, which is evil kings and evil queens. It's a little on the nose, but hey, it's a popular trope for a reason. I'm personally guilty of using it myself. Corrupted royalty works best when the ruler doesn't start as a villain. The most believable tyrants are the ones who think they're protecting their kingdom. Maybe the evil queen tightens laws to stop chaos, increases prices to fund defenses, or allows cruel methods because the threat feels bigger than morality. From their perspective, every terrible decision is justified. After all, if the kingdom survives, doesn't that make them look good or in the right? This kind of corruption is slow, quiet, and terrifying because it often looks like leadership until it's already gone too far. What makes a villainous king truly effective is how the corruption affects everyone beneath them. Guards become harsher, citizens become fearful, and dissent starts to disappear rather than arguing back. The players might be welcome still to the castle, praised for their service, and rewarded with gold, all while unknowingly enforcing the ruler's will. The moment of realization when the party understands they've been helping the problem instead of solving it is where corrupted royalties shine. A good villainous king or queen doesn't see themselves as evil. They see themselves as the last person willing to do what's necessary. And since they're in the highest seat of power possible, it makes them hard to touch. You can have villains that are liches and dragons, but an evil king or queen can honestly just be like a guy in a crown. The questline sort of changes from trying to kill the villain to trying to prove to the kingdom that their leader is in the wrong here. And just because the king dies doesn't mean that the story is over. Perhaps it's just the beginning. I am a massive comic book fan. I adore DC Comics so much, almost as much as I do Dungeons & Dragons. So of course I love me some D&D takes on the DC universe. There's a comic book series called Dark Knights of Steel, which is a fantasy-inspired DC Universe 12-issue series written by Tom Taylor with art by Yasmin Putri. Now this take on the DC Universe is very much D&D, it's very fantasy, and it has 3 royal families, all with hatred and love towards one another, making the brink of war teeter with each action. King Jor-El, father of Superman, King Jefferson, who's Black Lightning, and Queen Hippolyta, who is Wonder Woman's mother. Now, the reason I'm showing you this royal trinity is for inspiration, honestly. Issue 1 establishes a lot of Jor-El's role in this world, but the issue ends with his assassination, killed in front of our main characters, which in Dungeons & Dragons' case could be the party. This sets up a political shift in the world. The king is dead, but the assassin got away. Who could have done this? Were the other royal families involved? And if the party was the only witness to this event, then what role did they play moving forward? Guilty, on the run, or proving that they are innocent? War happens in fantasy. Soldiers often die for their kings and queens. This could be the start of a change in your world's royal politic balance, making your campaigns a bit more gruesome, not just by monsters, but for mankind. Going back to Dark Knights of Steel, having multiple royal kingdoms was really inspiring for me, personally. See, this Elseworld series started in late 2021, and during this time I was just starting to prep a new campaign, which is my current campaign. I like this idea a lot, so I said a yoink and I took that inspiration. I want to talk about my royal members for a second in my current campaign. My world is stacked on 3 layers, literally. I got my Underdark, the surface, and the Sky Islands floating above. Each layer has its own map and feeling to it. It's very Tears of the Kingdom, I know, but it's been great for switching up styles for exploration. My Underdark is ruled by Queen Runa Zod, an older drow woman who has inspired many in these cavern depths and has dedicated herself to making the Underdark a more safer place to be. Since she's an older drow woman, I didn't put much into her family tree, but she does have a son by adoptive standards and a granddaughter as well. They're both Myconids. Their story is massive and very much into my main story of this campaign. They are the son and the granddaughter of the Queen of the Underdark, despite not looking like her, but their story I'm going to save for a different video. On the surface is King Antonio Collis, a human man, like myself, who is a lonely but loved king. He lost his queen, his wife, and his youngest daughter in an accident long ago, and he hasn't really smiled since. He is still accompanied by 2 other daughters, and they are the princesses who take care of Antonio and his kingdom of Sokolov City. I won't go into much detail here because my players actually haven't interacted with Antonio yet, as of this recording at least. He remains a king who is in name and heard of, but not really known too much about outside of that. The Sky Islands are home to my main villain, King Zadakis Renwick, a deeply motivated king who will do whatever he can to recover his missing daughter, Princess Lily, no matter how many acts of treason and death get involved in the process. I've talked about Zadakis a lot in my other videos, so I'm going to leave it here. But I mean, if you guys do want to hear more about this world of mine, let me know. Maybe I'll do a little storytime video for inspiration for your own worlds. I've built this place up big time, so I wouldn't mind making a video on it if you guys are interested in listening to me yap about my world. Anyways, when the party meets royalty, it should feel different from every other NPC interaction. Kings and queens stand alone, as in like they are above you. There are guards watching, advisors listening, and political consequences hanging on every word though. Even a friendlier ruler should feel distant. Conversations happen through formality, ceremonies, and a layer of protection. This isn't meant to make the players feel powerless, but it's to remind them that royalty exists at a scale where words can start wars or end them. You have to be ready for those meetings, as they should be an honor to be a part of. Now, playing characters who are royalty flips the dynamic entirely though. A crown creates responsibility. Royal player characters are constantly watched, judged, and used as symbols, whether they want to be or not. Their actions reflect an entire region. Their failures become public scandals, and their enemies attacking them can feel more targeted than usual. Royal characters work best when the power fantasy is balanced by expectation, making every choice feel heavier than just feeling like another adventuring decision. You have to plan for adventures in Dungeons & Dragons, so when making a royal character, you have to answer the question on why your character isn't sitting in their castle. Why does your princess go on these adventures? Why is your prince away from the comforting home of their kingdom? Once you have those answered, then hey, you can play one of those, for sure. Finally, just because your world has kings and queens doesn't mean that there aren't others with another sort of royal status. You could have others with similar power, but below them, like jarls ruling other towns, or you can go above them as well by having an emperor or empress that rules your whole world. Or you can have some sort of puppet master controlling the kings and queens from the shadows like Wormtongue did.
My lord, Gandalf the Grey is coming.
Okay, I think we covered all that royal talk for the most part. As you can see, we've got a whole lot of options when designing these guys. I'm near the end of my current campaign, and I'm starting to slowly prep a new world, and I would love to have one king here, so let's design him. I don't want to think too much about the family tree or history, at least not right now. I'm thinking he's a lonely king with no parents, no queens, no heirs. The campaign obviously hasn't even had a session 0 yet, so things can change, but I want him to look rather strong and powerful while keeping a kingly look. When it comes to royalty and species in Dungeons & Dragons, I can think of 2 species that sort of shout kingly to me. And these 2 species happen to be my favorite ones in all of Dungeons & Dragons. They are dwarves and dragonborns, the double Ds of species within the player's handbook. I really want to lean into this royal look, so I think I'll go with the dragonborn here. I also think dragonborns are underused in Dungeons & Dragons. You don't see them nearly enough compared to species that look a bit more like regular people that you see in the real world. So having a more monstrous looking king leading an entire country sounds really cool to me. I'm gonna go with a gold dragonborn here as well. I want my king to look slender but well built as well. He's not lazy, he can defend himself for sure. And I want some royal blues and purples in his clothing along with mint green and white. I find a white cape to feel very kingly to me. I had my King Atticus wear one. Anyways, as far as like history goes, I don't plan on killing this guy off right away. He's gonna stay in his castle for the most part until the players meet him, and when they do, he's likely gonna have something to ask them. A secret perhaps? A quest line that he doesn't trust to give to his usual people? He definitely is hiding something. He spends all this time alone, but why? He hasn't found a queen, he has no plans on having children, so what's holding him back? Anyways, yeah, this is the design I came up with, a very simple look. I'm just realizing now, do Dragonborns wear shoes? Sure, this one does. This is a simple version of this. Not too much detail, but it gets the point across for my players. I draw a lot of my more important NPCs just like this to help the players visualize what they're seeing, and if they end up playing a bigger role later on, I'll do a full render of painting of them. I do plan on using this guy, I guess. I don't have a name yet. Let's call him, hold on, fantasy name generator, King Rolfo. Yeah, King Rolfo. Or King Tim. For some reason that came in my head as I was typing that in. King Tim or King Rolfo. Let me know which one sounds better. Or maybe they both suck. Just let me know. I show a lot of my campaign art in my videos here, so expect to see King Tim again, or Rolfo. And that's it for the video. A little bit of a long one, but thank you so much for watching. It's so cool to see all your comments and all my past videos of people saying, hey, this helped me out, or hey, this gave me such a good idea. Hey, I did this idea in my campaign and it went great. All these sort of comments just, oh my god, they motivate me so much. You guys are so awesome. It's so cool, man. It's so cool to be making this content and it being like useful for you guys and fun for you guys in your Dungeons and Dragons games. This channel is still very new, so I know I'm saying very obvious things here. Yes, there are a lot of videos on YouTube and the internet in general of ideas to put into your D&D games, but just thank you so much for liking and commenting and hyping and sharing and supporting this channel here, subscribing, all that stuff. You guys are just so awesome. I'm so grateful for how far we've come so far in D&D Hunter. And I'm so excited for the future. I am motivated more than ever. And all your guys' comments about if these little videos of mine have helped you or not have been just so cool. I know I'm stating the obvious, but just you guys are out there in the world. You know, you're out there in the whole world and you're playing D&D and you're getting some inspiration from me. And that's just, you know, I live in a little place in and you guys are everywhere and supporting and liking, and you know what? I should, you know, thank you so much. You get the idea. Thank you. And that's it. Yeah, like I said, let me know if you end up using some sort of like kings or queens, or use some of my ideas that I presented here in this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.